Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands and band like Grapes of Grain. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR. Outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. How we doing?
Cool. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm great.
Yep, we're sure, fine.
Good. So we are coming all the way from the Netherlands, and kind of how our connection was made is Alexis and I love of Pete Yorn because Berend said no way to him. So
I don't
let's
remember this music.
talk about your connection with Pete Yorn.
So I became aware of Pete Jordan with his debut album, Music for the Morning After, which is, I think one of my favorite records ever of all time. You can still I still play it once in a while, and it's still like every song is good, and it's just, a modern Tom. I always felt like it was a sort of modern Tom Petty. And yeah, and then I still follow him. Yeah, I kind of lost track of him after album number three, but once in a while, still, go on Spotify and just put on Pete Jornas, and then you see that he got some new records out or whatever, new songs out. So yeah, I still listen to him once in a while. But Music for the Morning After it's a great. I think it's yeah, a great record, and still is, and still holds up even 20 years after. Yeah, I think it's from 2001 or 2002. Yeah, so I played it a lot. I used to have I didn't have. I remember now. I remember I used to have a CDR of it, so it's that long ago. Like I burned a CDR version of it, and yeah, I don't think I ever seen him live because in Holland he wasn't that well known. He didn't really cross over. So yeah, but he's still active, and yeah, so that's good to see. And obviously he did pretty well with the Scarlett Johansson collaboration. And there was a great song, or an album, but that one song that what was called the hit song, the hit single? What was it called?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and it
Yeah.
escapes me.
Revelator, right? Revelator or something like
Is it? Uh,
that.
your guess is better than mine.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Yeah.
it's called Apart.
No, no, no. But the song had a different title. The hits.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the EP is called Apart.
Okay.
Gotcha. Nice call, Marin. Way to go. Our research
I'm
department, I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
research. Fact
It's half
checking.
past 9 in the evening, but I'm awake.
So, so Grapes of Grain, you guys have been together since 2005, 2006?
Yeah, 2005.
2005. So almost 20 years. When I say that to both of you, what does that mean to you?
Now, you want to go, Berend?
Yeah, it means that if you stay making music, then these things can happen, that you bump into each other again and start making music again. Because actually, we started out in 2004, and the band was still called Easton because you, Alexis, had named your band Easton. You remember?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and then you needed a guitar player, and I wanted to be a drummer, but you thought my guitar playing was better, so you hired me as a guitar player. And then these two other guys joined, and they left after you renamed the project Grapes of Grain, I remember. And then it was also all of a sudden more mellow because Easton was more rock like. You wanted to play harder, more punkier. And then all of a sudden when you changed the name, it was also more folk and Americana and more acoustic. So it was quite the change, but I really liked it because I really like both styles. And I actually like drumming harder more than playing guitar, I always like more both styles, like the hard and the soft. Also, so I really like the fact that you changed the project to Grapes of Grain to more acoustic, folky stuff.
I don't remember you drumming though when we first met, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah. I said I wanted to play both instruments because I could play both, but I remember you really liking my guitar playing.
So
yeah.
drumming
That was
side project then, maybe?
yeah. No, yeah. I still play the drums. I still every once in a while. I started out last week in a Strokes cover band playing drums, which is really fun and also maybe a little hard because it's so you have to like be drum really tight. So that's also quite hard, but it's really fun to do.
So catalog wise, are you doing more early Strokes or more like last two albums?
No, it's we started out last week playing like 4 songs from the first album and 2 from the second, and then the song "You Only Live Once." Also from the I think the third or fourth album. But yeah, it's really nice to do. Also getting back to the music because I don't really listen to the Strokes on a daily basis or every week or so. It's nice getting to know music again by playing it actually.
What do you think, Alexis?
well, I'm a big fan of the Strokes, so that will be a good influence on Berend.
I hope. I hope it will be.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like at the same time, like with Pete Jordan, the Strokes, that was a big, yeah, one of my favorite bands ever, or those first 3 albums as well. Uh, yeah, and then was for Grapes of Grain in 2005. Yeah, well, when you say 2005, on one hand, it seems like ages ago. On the other hand, it feels like yesterday. I mean, that's
True.
I think everybody who's getting a bit older, we're 40 in our 40s now. That feels like, oh wow, time passes fast in hindsight. Um, Music wise, I don't think we changed a lot. A little bit, like there's some natural evolution, but I mean, we still both like the same stuff, well, or at least from my perspective. And when you play music together, like you don't really think uh, deliberately, okay, we're gonna sound like this or that. Like it comes out the way you play it. I mean, you can look for certain directions sound wise or what instruments you use, but it's not like, oh, we're gonna sound like whatever style. Like, so I think it's a natural evolution. Like, so 20 years ago it doesn't feel music wise like a different time. Yeah, so we just picked up where we left off. It feels. And I would only say like the benefit of today is that with today's technology, it's a lot easier to record stuff, and so that's why we're releasing more stuff as well. Because like in 2005 or six, yeah, you needed so much equipment and get like set up everything with the mics and people involved. So that was a lot of work. It was cool, but yeah, today you can get almost the same quality with less equipment and also less expensive equipment.
Yeah. So do you typically write your songs lyrics first or music first?
Music first, yeah, never lyrics first. It never happened.
Interesting. It's whenever I ask a band or an artist that question, it's usually like 60-40. Usually it's music a little bit more, but I'm surprised at how many are lyrics first.
Yeah, it's surprising to me as well. I find it very well. Yeah, I don't know. For me, like I just play my guitar and then start singing and just some words come out, some random words, and that's sort of like the base. The base point where you start off from. If the song, well, if there's a good melody, then you're like, okay, I want to continue finishing this song, and then you start writing lyrics, and then one idea leads to the other idea, and then, well, it's hard for me. It's hard. It's the hardest part, writing lyrics. So yeah, I always struggle with finishing them. So
I always admire songwriters who admit in interviews that they actually write a lot of lyrics or poetry and then every now and again they come back to it, and then they turn really good words into a good song. That's a thing I would like to do, but never could achieve, I think. And now hearing Alexis, I think he wouldn't do it in that way, maybe either. But I always admire it if songwriters achieve that, writing lyrics first or poetry and then putting music underneath it or something.
So do you typically then play the guitar or do you play the piano when you're writing music then?
The guitar, yeah. I think I only wrote one song on the piano, and that hasn't been released or recorded yet officially. But that's just three chords. Like I'm not a really good musician, so I just play the chords, and then Berend does sort of like the hard stuff. And so yeah, I always write on guitar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, you're a pretty good musician, but you're not really an instrumentalist. I think was never your interest to be like the best guitar player or something. It's just a kind of a means to achieve some songwriting stuff, maybe more.
Yeah, that's true as well. But yeah, but it's also with the music that I like. I mean, it's always struck or formed around chord sequences instead of riffs or little licks. So yeah, it starts off basically with chords and then just a melody, and then one thing leads to another. Leads to another.
Yeah, you're kind of like the coloring book that has like, the outline of the picture, and then bare end is like the actual color. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fair. And, a lot of songs Alexis write don't actually need that much coloring because usually they're finished in terms of structure, and that doesn't have to be a lot of like editing, which part comes where and how many times a part is repeated, or that works out nicely. But most of the time it's just arranging stuff. That's the way we started out in 2022. When he sent me some Alexa sent me some iPhone demos, and I thought, yeah, I was in a space where I could use these demos just to dress them up, and them being like finished songs was really nice to like think about the arrangements, which I already do in every band I play. So, and also in the past in Grapes of Grain. So I always like to think about which instrument goes where, and the bass line or whatever, or there's this melody in the back, maybe an extra guitar part, or so. That's really my thing. But usually the songs are like 90% finished or something.
Oh, okay, interesting. So the name Grapes of Grain, why the name Grapes of Grain?
yeah. So like Baron said, at first had a band called Easton when I was living in Rotterdam, and then for studies I moved to Utrecht, and that band already sort of fell apart in Holland. Was just well, it was still alive, but now like when I moved to Utrecht, I was like, okay, like to continue with Easton, and we played with the four of us, and it was a bit more indie alternative music, yeah, like Pavement and Blur sounding, and then I met this other guy in university, and he was really into folk music. Well, at the time, like Sufjan Stevens and Armin and Wine and M. Ward, we got inspired by them. And that guy had an also, he was in another band. It's like, hey, maybe we can do something together, the two of us. And so we recorded the first version, well, our first EP, depending on the weather, which was more folk finger picking, acoustic guitars, oriented music. Like it was sort of like more like started out as a side project, and we needed a name, and I felt like we needed sort of like a band name that sounds a bit more folky. And for some reason, oh yeah, so Grapes of Grain, it was sort of inspired by Grapes of Wrath, the Steinbeck book. Like, that's a typical, well, it has this clear link with folk music, I would say. And yeah, and then Grapes of Grain. I don't know, grain sounds also a bit more, yeah, it has this, yeah, farming folk country feel to it. So that's where it came. well, that's where the name came from.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, so it started out as a side project. Like we were going to do Easton, and then on the side Grapes of Grain. But then Easton, sort of two other guys left in the band, the bass player and the drummer, and the Berend also played with well on that first recording as well. So like, well, we just continue with Grapes of Grain because we just released that EP, and why not continue it? And yeah, so that's how we got stuck with Grapes of Grain.
so. Speaking of that EP, depending on the weather, the song "A Little Bit," the female singer that is on that song, who sings that song? Because it's a great voice.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's Bean Feit. Bean Feit. She's also from Utrecht, and I knew her just from being in Utrecht. And she, during that time, she also released her own music. Yeah, she's really, really good. It's like she never really made it big in Holland, unfortunately. But yeah, yeah, she has a great, very cat power, PJ Harvey esque voice. So it was really, yeah, it's a really, really good voice. But yeah, so she joined on that EP. I think she sang on two or three songs, but the biggest part was on a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And the violin on that, did you come up with that music for that, for the violin part?
Yeah, but I didn't play it. So, but the melody, I think there was a counter melody, right, with Berend playing a guitar lick and then
Yeah.
the violin answering that part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. Very, very well done.
Actually, what I really liked about the first record also that it was like really arranged with different instruments and the violin as well, is that when we played it live, you have to come up with stuff that is like equally good, or you have to like play like this violin lick suddenly on your guitar, and that makes you like more inventive or something. So it's also a challenge for a musician to hear other instruments or other stuff, and then you have to like go back to the rehearsal room and make it all up again for playing it with a smaller setting or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because now you have to, when we play live, you have to play, well, the whole, it's
Yeah.
a very, the arrangement is quite yeah, expensive. So, you have to translate it to one guitar
I
part.
still played it when we did a gig acoustic 2 weeks ago in like this small record store in a small town near Utrecht, and I still play the violin part. I think it's just it's a,
Ah,
it's a
yeah.
melody that I have to play it, although it doesn't really maybe fit in there, or it's a bit strange when the guitar suddenly plays it. But if it's not there, it's not the same. I would miss it too much. You
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. There needs to be something there, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys tend to, like, in your set list now, do you, because you had that kind of 13-year gap, do you tend to not play the older stuff, or do you still throw the old stuff in there?
Well, the only song old song we play is that the one you mentioned a little bit.
Oh,
It's also
wow.
because someone, a close friend, said to Alexis, "You have to play it every time you play live." I think Mark said it to you, and you told me Mark said you have to play a little bit every time you do a live show because it's
Oh,
too good a song to not play it.
yeah, I think it's also one of our best songs, so it still works. So yeah, it's a fun song to play. But other than that, no, we like to play more the newer stuff because that's more interesting and fun. Because yeah, so that's the only old song we play still.
Yeah. So let's talk about that gap. I mean, 13 years is a long time. Before you got on, we were joking about how Tears for Fears, they waited 17 years in between albums. So you guys were trying to compete with them. But when he comes to you with these songs, like, what was your initial reaction?
My reaction
Yeah,
to
of course.
Alexis' songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really baffled because I think it was the last day of the school year, and I'm a teacher, high school teacher, so it was like the last day, and I was like in rehearsal mode for the final party we always have with the teachers, and then I play in the teachers band. So I had all these top 40 songs in my head I had to play, and then suddenly I get this message on phone through WhatsApp, with hey, do you still make music? And I have some demos here, and he sent me them. I listened to them. I thought, well, yeah, it's still like the same vibe, or nothing's really changed in his writing style. Apparently, he can pick it up after 10 years because he hadn't written, or he told me he hadn't touched the guitar for years and years. So I thought, well, yeah, it's probably still in there if you can make up these songs or this stuff, then and you have to listen through it because like if it's a crappy demo, then the sound quality is not very good, and the balance between guitar and voice, and it's not a guy after 10 years who tries to sing like really in tune or something. So you have to listen through it to really appreciate it, and maybe think, yeah, this could turn out into a good song if you put this underneath it or that, or you just play with the whole thing, then it can turn out quite well probably. So that was I think my initial reactions, just like toying around with it or something and throwing it in the computer and maybe record some extra instruments or stuff like that. Yeah.
Alexis?
Well, I mean, what was the question?
Well, I mean, so like when after 13 years, like what was your motivation to finally like, bring these
Oh,
songs to him? Like was it
yeah.
just you woke up one day and you're like, well, fuck it, let's do this.
Well, I had that idea for, we basically quit in 2009, and then I think we still, because some people left the band, and then Berend and I think we still wanted to continue, but you have to start all over again with new people, and like I kind of lost motivation, uh, so we just faded out as well. Our album was also just by pure coincidence called It Slowly Fades that we just in 2009. But anyway, like through those 12 years, I still had once in a while the urge to do something with music, but I got really bored quickly with playing guitar. And then I think it was more because of COVID and then being in lockdown. And 2 years later, like, hey, I really want to do something again with music. And it was more because I contacted Berend and Stefan, the other guy who sort of, yeah, is still semi part of the band. It's like, hey, do you want to record some stuff again with me? And when they responded with yes, that sort of gave me. I think I contacted Stefan first because I saw him a year ago before that, and he said, "Yeah, I'm always up for recording." And then I wrote a song, and then I sent it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, we can record it." And I sent it to Berend, and he came back with this fully arranged song. I was like, "Wow, this is really good." And that sort of gave me the motivation to write again. So I think the main reason for me is I always sort of need this. It's um, okay. Is this going to lead to something? Like if I'm just not, I don't think it's very entertaining for my. I don't really have a lot of joy in just playing guitar for myself by myself. Uh, so it needs to lead to something, and I can record on my own. So when the Baron like wanted to do this again, I was like, wow, this is great. And then I started writing, and yeah, that's how it started. So. But I need some. Well, I cannot do it by myself on my own, and I always like it when other people join with the music, like take the songs into a different direction or a slightly different direction. So it worked out really great, better than I expected. Like we just wanted to do one EP, and but yeah, like I sort of got this writing bug, and that's first summer when we started doing this again in 2020. I wrote a lot of songs that summer, and it still
Me
continues,
too. Yeah.
continues to this day.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, I think for everybody, it just kind of allowed everybody to pause, like take a pause and like kind of rethink everything, and it led to a lot of musical creativity, and obviously it kind of led to yours, correct?
Yeah, I think that's also what I really miss now that you mentioned it, a creative outlet. Like I was still like listening to a lot of music, and but you're just a consumer, you're a consumer, and after a while, like yeah, I really feel also a lot better, like mentally. Not that there's some big things going on, but it's really good. It feels really good to have a creative outlet again, and yeah, so it's really satisfying.
So again, let's talk about that gap. In 2006, Spotify and all these streaming services were just kind of like in their infancy or not had started at all. And then you come back in 2022 and it's not really like albums are kind of poo-pooed now, it's singles and stuff like that. Like, what's your take on the album in this day and age?
Well, the way I listen to music changed a lot as well because of streaming services. So I listen to a lot more just songs instead of whole albums. I think I only listen to like 4 or 5 albums regularly on a yearly basis, like my favorite albums. But it's not like if it's not as when I was a teenager, you bought CDs, you would listen to those CDs like for 2 or 3 months in a row every day, the same 10 songs, because you didn't have any other options. And well, you didn't have the money to get other CDs on a weekly basis. So now it's a lot faster and quicker, and you shift more through songs. So yeah, unfortunately, on one hand, unfortunately, I would still prefer albums, but I also like kind of lost a bit of patience with it, I think. So yeah, for me, I'm also more of a song-based person now than an album-based listener.
How about you, Baron?
I agree that also the listening experience has changed because of the streaming services, and I also like really collect good songs more than I try to discover good albums, which I also do, but it's like more scarcely, or you don't really bump into them like on a weekly basis or something. Good albums, but good songs are easy to find nowadays, and I really like finding them through all kinds of different inspiring channels and playlists, and then what I really enjoy, it's maybe a strange thing, but I really enjoy like then buying them, because then I hope that maybe a little bit of the money you spend actually ends up in a good place, which probably it doesn't all the time. But and then I burn them on CD because in my Prius I only have a CD player. So, and there's this aux, you can use an aux cable, but it's really crappy. And you have to turn up the volume really loud. So I like just burning the CD with the bought songs. And then every 2 or 3 months, I have like the CD with 85 really good songs I collected from everywhere in different styles. And then I listen to it all the time in the car, going to the soccer or anything. And then that I really enjoy it. But when I bump into a good album, I really play it like through the streaming two or three times, and I buy it on LP, so on vinyl, and because then I really enjoy like listen it on the full stereo audiophile experience to a really good album.
So let's talk about your relationship with Snowstar Records and how that all came about.
Yeah, so Snowstar Records is I think Americans would call it like an indie boutique label. It specializes in indie slash folk music. It started out, I think, almost 20 years ago, and like after in 2007, we got in touch with the owner Cedric through Stefan, who's in our band, and he used to play also in a band that got released by Snowstar. And then we just finished recording our EP, Balloons from the Blue, and he really liked it a lot. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna release it for you guys, which was still a digital only at the time. But then our full length album, Balloons from the Blue, was released by Snowstar. I mean, during that time, 2008 and 9, Snowstar wasn't as big as they are now. Like they really got their big break through an artist called I Am Oak, which is sort of like I would describe him as the Dutch Iron and Wine. Or Stephen Stevens, I don't know. But that guy got really like big mainstream recognition in Holland, and Snowstar really took off ever since. So I guess we were just before Snowstar got big, but yeah, they're still really doing well, releasing really high quality stuff. I would say like 4 to 6 records a year, and the guy he's a label manager. It's his label, but he's also used to be the artist manager of a band called Kensington, which was a really huge band in Holland, probably the biggest rock band, sort of like the Dutch Kings of Leon, status-wise, and also musically a little bit in that direction as well. So yeah, they're really good. Like, so I did approach him for when we got back together for our in 2023. Like, hey, do you want to release our new music? But he liked it, but he said, well, we sort of moved on with our style, and we're not sort of doing that music anymore. And also, I guess there's also this commercial inkling because, well, it's not like we're really well known in Holland or sell huge records, and we don't really tour. So there's not really a financial incentive for him to put in a lot of work for a release that he's not going to break even on, which is fair enough. I mean, it's his business. So, but I'm still in touch with the guy. So, yeah.
So, like, what is the best way in your country to get your music out? Is it through social media? Is it through like playing shows? Like, what is the struggle?
Well, it's a struggle. I think the best way for our type of music is still playing live a lot because social media is just like, they call it a Red Sea in marketing. Like there's so much competition. Like, how do you stand out? It's almost impossible. And I don't really like it either. I mean, I think most of the time, 90% of what you see, or 95 or 99% of social media on Instagram is just dumb stuff, in my opinion. And as an artist, what are you gonna post about? I follow some artists, but it's not that interesting what they're doing in their day-to-day life, or if they've performed a show, you can see it. Well, yeah, it's like whatever. So social media doesn't really work for music promotion, I think. It's still just playing shows and get your name out there slowly but surely, and then hopefully people will pick it up. And I think it's really important that you get on a curated Spotify playlist. That makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get on one. I don't know how it works, that system, but you can see some artists that just got one song on a curated playlist, even if it's just on a regional level, like in Holland, that it booms immediately. So I think that's key. Unfortunately, it's still like, even though the space is open wide, you can release your stuff very easily and promote yourself. There's still gatekeepers who sort of have to push you one way or the other. So for our type, well, our level, like you just have to play a lot and just get your name out there to the real music lovers that still go to shows and follow even blogs, or I don't know where. Yeah, I mean, I still read a lot about music, which is a bit old-fashioned, but I like it, and that's how I discover music still, and podcasts, obviously. So,
How about you, Baron?
Yeah, the same. I read a lot, but I read less about music than I used to do. I had like this really long relationship where I got the biggest music magazine in Holland like for years and years. But also now the blogs, I read them less, but I do have my own channels to like check out new music. Also like these internet radio stations, like in Holland you have Penguin, and you have French radio station called Veep Paris. And then you can just like look at their playlists and like gather a couple of songs and then which are inspiring. And then also I have besides from Spotify, I have Tidal because I really like the sound quality and like it looks, and the look and feel of the whole app is really fine, really nice. So on Tidal I also have like these playlists, indie Britain and indie folk and in between. I like to check out a couple of songs every now and again, and some of them you give a heart and then you get back to them, and that's the way I listen to music nowadays. And sometimes you read about maybe the artists you discover. It's also nice to do it the other way around, like first listening to it and then checking it out. Who are they from? Who are they? Where are they from? Always nice to know if you're like kind of a music nerd, which I am.
So, how do radio stations work in your country then? Are like, what's the majority of like like what's the genre of music that most radio stations play? Are they independently owned, or is it all conglomerates, or how does that work?
I think the biggest radio stations are just commercial stations, and they play mostly mainstream. Well, I don't really actually listen to. I don't know. It's hard. I don't really follow it, so only when I'm in the car once in a while I turn on the radio. Uh, yeah, so the commercial or even the public radio stations also play very commercial stuff. Like Holland is not the best country for indie or alternative music. Like in the US, you got a lot of these local or these or stems from the college radio days and like because I still on YouTube see I don't remember all the names, but those key EPX is a big one, right? Or yeah,
KPXN. Yep.
okay, yeah, that sort of type of stations we don't have that here, so it's very limited. So radio, there's one station called Kink FM, which does play alternative music, but they also focus mostly on when alternative music was big, the 90s, so they still advertise, oh, we play Radiohead, Chemical Brothers, Tool. Like, that's what Rage Against the Machine. So that's how they promote their station. It's like, wow. So, yeah. You don't, well, radio doesn't really matter in Holland, I would say. But, yeah.
And what about music festivals? What are your biggest music festivals then in Holland?
Oh well, festivals are really huge. So the festival industry is big and it's really important for artists. That's the way to get your name out there exactly and attract a new crowd. So we got mostly these are going on in the summertime and but throughout the whole year, like especially alt country music is really big here. Relative speaking. And they actually in October, last weekend, you got a huge festival, Americana Festival in Utrecht, and next weekend there's a big one in the north of Holland. So yeah, festivals are going on all throughout the year, and it's a big, huge. They draw huge crowds. So there, people are really interested in music, alternative indie music. So the industry is quite pretty good, but radio stations don't really matter. But festivals are, yeah, indeed a big thing here.
And what about indie labels then? Are there any indie labels then outside of Snowstar?
Um, Probably, but I couldn't.
Excelsior?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Excelsior. That's a big one from the 90s.
Okay.
They were focused on guitar pop, sort of like Merge Records, what they did in the 90s. And they're still doing that, and they're quite, yeah, they're pretty successful here in Holland. So that's one. But you have to be aware that Holland is a very small country, right? So the industry by itself is quite small and therefore also not very diverse. Or, well, diverse there are, but there are only one or two players, not like, oh, you got 10 different options. So just one or two, and then, uh, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Do you have any sort of like American Idol or any sort of those singing competitions that are like a national like
Yeah, we do have actually the Voice. The Voice is a big TV show, talent show, which was actually I think invented here in Holland by a big TV guy called John de Mol. And but yeah, that's not really good for like independent music, singer songwriter music. But years and years ago, we had the best singer songwriter in Holland was a TV show, which was actually a little bit more interesting, maybe because it was about people writing their own music, singing their own music. But I think it got canceled after maybe 3 or 4 seasons. I don't know. So now it's all commercial bullshit again. It's all like yeah, the mainstream stuff, or like people just who can sing a song but not really write one or give it any originality. Or I don't watch that stuff anymore, and I think Alexis doesn't either. Probably
No,
because
I never
therefore it's
watched. Oh
no.
yeah, I don't have it. Well, I have a TV here, but it's not hooked up to any. I still have to, well, I have to download stuff for. I'm not subscribed to any streaming service either. So yeah, my yeah. So I don't see random stuff anymore like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So let's talk about we kind of touched on it slowly fades, your debut basically full-length album, correct?
Mm. Yeah,
The
indeed.
the song The Biggest Ass. Uh as we talked about before we started recording, Alexis, I get a lot of Ben Folds vibes on this song, and the trumpet is just absolutely beautiful. Talk about the inspiration for that song.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a long time ago. Well, I wrote it on guitar, that's for sure, but that I do remember. And coming up, yeah, but for some reason I felt this was a piano song, and I think in the practice room we gave it to Stefan right away, the key player in our band. And I think it worked really well with the piano. Yeah, like you mentioned Ben Folds. I guess I listened to them quite a bit as well in the past, and well, yeah, the first album. For me, it's also a bit very Counting Crows. I'm a big Counting Crows fan, so the colorblind connection is there. Uh, and then for the trumpet, I do remember having that melody, and just I think Berend played it on guitar. I'm just like singing that melody, but then they translated it to musical instrument. And the lyrics themselves, I think it was about a girl that I really liked, and then obviously most of the songs are stem from that, and that I was a bit of an asshole, and I felt like the biggest ass is also sort of like a funny title, quite ironic, being the biggest ass, and because when people see a title like that, the biggest ass, like what the hell is that about? And uh, and funny enough, when we put it on streaming services, it was one of our most on Google or YouTube, our most played song. But I think solely because of the title, because people were searching for other stuff, maybe. But yeah, I still like that song. Yeah, I really like the trumpet part as well. Yeah, now that I think about it, I sort of got that inspiration with the outro for just the sole instrumentation from Night Swimming from REM, which is also a piano song, but it's got that instrument, the oboe, I think it's called. And they have this beautiful outro where it's just the instruments taking over and the vocal not being part of the last minute of the song. So yeah, it's nice for you to bring up that song. Yeah.
Yeah. Alex or Berend, are you as much of a fan of REM as he is?
No. No, I like it better. I don't have a dislike of Aryan, but I don't know all the albums, and it's just yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of REM, I think the song Homebound has definite REM vibe. And you, Alexis, you kind of said, but what do you think about that song, Baron?
I really like it because there was a song that I think he didn't know what to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't know what to do with it, and I took like full advantage of that gap and made up all the parts, and in the end played all the parts, drums, the bass, and mixing it as well. So, and I think it's one of the more like streamed tracks we have. So I'm really proud of it. Because I knew right away that it should get like this energy vibe in the drum and bass part, uh, which turned out really well, I think. So I really like the song. I really like the happy vibes in it, also in the lyrics about the plums there, which are ripe to pick or something. I have a plum tree in my garden, so I always get happy when I think about the song and listening to it. Yeah.
Alexis, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like indeed, I think it's also one of our best songs. Like to me, when I wrote it, it felt like, or just a song by its bare bones, like just me, the voice and the guitar was very Lemonheads to me.
Mhm.
Um, and then we first recorded the drums, and then I was like, okay, then then I don't know what happened. Like 2 months later, Berend suddenly sent me the song. I'm like, wow, he finished everything, and I didn't even record official vocals for them, just guide vocals, and then he turned it into this, well, great song. I think it's one of our best songs, and yeah, it was a great arrangement, and it works really well. And we did a nice video taking place in Utrecht, so it's sort of like that reference as well, going homebound. And the lyrics are pretty nice. They're a bit more, they have a more positive vibe than our usual songs. So, I think it's one of our best songs. So, yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I
So,
found out how to turn like lead vocals into backing vocals. So it's actually not there's no other singer singing in the background, but it's Alexis's first lead vocal turned into into a backing vocal, which was something I found out and worked really well. And I didn't really have to sing them myself, so it was kind of nice.
have you done that with any other songs?
Yeah, every now and again, but my girlfriend says, no, you always, if you can do a backing vocal, you have to do a backing vocal. So now I kind of got back to singing them more myself a lot of the time because it's fun to sing also. It's like when you're like dragging these little colored blocks in the computer, it's also a bit like cheating. And singing is a nice thing to do. So now I try to do them myself, like all the time.
Alexis, how important is it for you to have like a female voice sing with you? Because you've had a lot of female voices sing with you over the years.
Yeah, it's funny that actually, since you mentioned it, like with the Pete Fine joined us on that first record. Like now, then I was sort of like, wow, we do that sort of on every record. Uh, it's important in the sense just to give it a bit more dynamics. If when you listen to a whole record, you don't want to hear the same voice all the time. And my voice is quite limited in range and also from an emotional depth, I would feel. So I think it's important to have different voices, vocalists on the songs, just to give it a bit more uh, coloring. Yeah. So we do it quite a lot, and it works well so far. I mean, for the yeah, we do it actually all the time. I could say maybe we're not going to do it for the next one, but I think it's really important. Yeah, so we're probably going to continue doing that.
So
But it depends on
no
the song,
choirs,
obviously. Sorry?
no choirs. It would be just single.
Well, Berend probably wants a choir. He's a big fan of those
I do. I
type
think
of arrangements.
harmonies are a really important thing, and so I tried in the song "Sensation." I tried like this gospel vibe, and it got like tuned down a little bit, but I think it's still there somewhere. But the first demo version I did, I think I recorded 6 voices or something, and put a lot of like whole kind of reverb over it, and because in my head it sounded like a real gospel choir, so I was kind of trying to achieve that. But when the female vocalist was found and sang her part, it also turned out really well. So I was happy with it with the end result. Yeah.
So, Baron, when you tell your girlfriend, "Hey, Alexis gave me a bunch of these songs. It sounds like we're going to get the band back together." Like, what was her reaction, or what was the family's reaction?
Yeah. Actually, she has to kind of get used to the sound also because she wouldn't listen to it herself if I wasn't in it in the whole project or the band. So, but yeah, the new album she really likes after a couple of spins, and yeah, but there's a lot of time goes into it. So, and we also have a 9-year-old son, so and a full-time job. So I have to like manage spending the time on music and also yeah, living your life and your family life as well.
Yeah, I mean, for both of you, how do you kind of balance that, trying to be a full-time musician, but also knowing that you have to pay your bills as well?
Well, so we're not really full-time musicians. Like at our age, we don't really have that ambition anymore. I mean, it was still a dream when we were students and in our 20s. But now it's just for me. like I said, it's a good creative outlet. You do want your music to get out because you're still proud of it, and you're like, hey, you want people to listen to it. So that's important. Um, like for me, like if you and we so we because of our day-to-day stuff, we don't really have the time anymore to practice a lot or even play a lot of shows. Yeah, it just gets harder with schedules and being able to meet on a regular basis. I have a bit more because I don't have a family like Berend has, so I have a little bit more free time than he does. And I guess we just uh, put in the amount of work that we can do, or put in the amount of time that we have available to us, and then see where we can produce in a short time. But I think we did a lot more than originally we expected to do. And like I said, it works. We can work faster now with the technology available, and Berend is very well versed with the software and all the instruments, so he can do things well pretty rapidly. Um, but yeah, you just have to be more conscious of your time, that's for sure. But money-wise, it's not like we have to dream anymore to be full-time musician. Well, we'd still like it, obviously, but you have to be realistic as well about that.
Do you feel like it's the genre of music, or is it really just living in your country that's kind of you're kind of behind the eight ball as an independent artist?
Both. Like Holland is not the best. Well, it's so small, so it's already hard, even as a popular mainstream musician, to make a living. Uh, yeah, and you could argue that okay, Europe has just as big as a market as the US does, but still, when you're from Holland, it's not that easy to cross over to Belgium or France because it's a whole different network, and so it just works differently in each country, and you get to know people. Where in the US, it's probably easier to manage a band from New York and just go to LA or Austin to play shows there, or. Um, so yeah, that's a disadvantage. And our type of music, I don't know. Yeah, obviously it's not. I don't know. Like, do you know? I couldn't really call a band that play our type of music. Yeah, I think it's also the type of music. I mean, yeah, I couldn't really think of a band that's successful or a new band that plays our type of music that's really big or could make a living out of it.
Right.
Well, I don't know.
Is EDM still big in your country?
Yeah, DJs are the main Dutch export product, probably. It's huge. And last weekend there was a dance industry festival here in Amsterdam. And then I got to read up about because I really don't follow that genre, but then you read all about these DJs and how big they are, all even the new names, and I'm like, wow, still all uh, there's still new DJs from Holland coming that are still the biggest in the world. I'm like, wow, there's something going on. I don't know how they do it, but like every 5 years, there's another big Dutch DJ uh, going around. So yeah, that's also Holland is more focused on dance music, probably. Yeah, that's true.
That's just fascinating because yeah, you would go probably country to country and like each country has a dominant genre of music, but it is weird like that was big. EDM was big like 10 years ago here, and then it's still around,
Yeah,
but it's not like, main.
yeah. Well, I guess it evolved, but even though it's not just EDM or techno or I don't know how all these subgenres are called in that genre, but yeah, Holland is very focused on dance music, so or DJ stuff. So,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is, like Belgium, which is our neighboring country, that's where alternative music, at least in the '90s, they had some amazing indie bands, and it's still Belgium has a different culture. So yeah, it's weird how these little differences still have an impact in what kind of music or arts country produces or focuses on.
Mhm. So I would be remiss to not ask about the kind of like the drug policy in your country, right? It's very lax. Like talk about that and how that kind of influences kind of the culture.
Well, Berend is our main drug user, so he.
I'm no drug expert. No, it's true. Probably still comes from Pulp Fiction, right? Everybody knows about that, and always reminds us that Amsterdam is well known globally for our liberal drug policy. But no, I don't know. Actually, uh, being 40 plus and having a job and living in the suburbs, I don't really get out that much. I'm not really around people who smoke weed or like do stuff like that anymore. But I probably, if you indulge in the going out scene and the dance festival Alexis was talking about just now in Amsterdam, then it's probably all over there. And yeah, I sometimes maybe hear people about it, but I wouldn't indulge in it myself.
Yeah, and I think, well, actually, how to translate to culture, like, because you bring it up, like with dance music, like, because these parties go on forever, like for 7 hours, 8 hours. That's when people need the pills, like ecstasy or LSD, just to keep going. So that was one of the main reasons people, I think, saw the increase of drug use. And I think because of the drug policies were always kind of, well, very open and relaxed, people don't really abuse it as much as you would expect. So, um, but our rules and policies are not as unique anymore as they were in the 70s or 90s. I mean, Colorado has a pretty progressive standpoint on that, right? And I think even more progressive than in Holland at this point. Belgium is pretty open. Germany is pretty open these days as well about recreational drugs. So it's not that special anymore, but still, like, because I live in Amsterdam, you see a lot of tourists just going to the coffee shops. Like, there are coffee shops everywhere. Like, basically, every 2 blocks, you can find a coffee shop. And then, especially in the tourist areas, you smell it everywhere, people smoking weed. So, yeah. But for Dutch people, they are kind of, uh, they know how to use it and not abuse it, I would say.
Gotcha. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? Is it like like what are we talking cost wise? Like any idea?
I
Uh,
wouldn't know. Probably you do, Alexis.
uh, well, I would say like if you want to buy a pre-roll, like a joint, or how do you call it? Like we roll them in a big thicker than in the US. So I think you can buy them for like €4. So it's like $5. For pills, I couldn't answer that. I have no idea, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, in the US, it seems like people under the age of 25 are drinking less, but it
Mm.
seems like marijuana use and like other stuff is up. Is that what you're kind of seeing in your country as well, or not as much?
Yeah, we have these. I had like this people coming over at our school to like give an extra lesson about young people and which kind of drugs they do and how to avoid them using them. And we had this like this thing. I think before COVID, maybe 5 6 years ago, when suddenly a lot of young people from around like 18, 19, 20 were using like laughing gas,
Mm.
lachgas.
Mm.
And then also in my village, you also found like these little metal silver capsules, and oh yeah, they were using it over here, but it turned out to be like as addictive, but also as dangerous, maybe in another way than other soft drugs, but really addictive. And also now you still have stories sometimes in the newspapers about, yeah, well, laughing gas is not that thing anymore, and it's not that used widely. Or, but hey, here we have a girl, young woman from over there and there who has had a major past with addiction, and now she's giving lessons about it. Now, then you think, oh yeah, it was actually pretty rough or pretty dangerous after all. And when in first place everybody thought, well, laughing gas can be that dangerous, but then it turns out to be. And I think that you have this stuff with like designer drugs. I don't know if you heard about them, which is also maybe still a little bit of an underground thing, but we're hearing more of it these days. Still, like you hear more of it like every year. There's more talk about designer drugs and what they are and why they're so hard to trace, and why for people who want to avoid youth using those drugs, they have a lot of trouble like pinpointing where they come from. And so that's really a hard thing, I think, for everyone to avoid.
Yeah, our country's dealing with fentanyl. That's the big thing. And like vapes. Everyone's vaping.
Oh yeah, vapes also a very big thing over here. Yeah.
It's crazy. So let's talk about, so you're a teacher, Berend, and Alexis, what do you do currently then?
I'm a product manager for IT services, so apps or websites. So I work on different kind of projects. Every couple of years I change jobs and then work on a different product.
And then what does the keyboardist and the drummer do?
Well, they're not officially in the band anymore. I think the drummer, he works for the government as a policymaker, and the keyboard player, he spends his time, he makes his real money from doing online marketing, and that's kind of admirable. He deliberately does it 3 or 4 days a week, and then the other 2 days he uses that to making music for his own band, for his other, well, he organizes a lot of music events just to be involved with music for those 2 days a week. So he's making less money or working less so that he could but still be able to provide for his family, but then still doing a lot of music work as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk about then. So you guys you're in Amsterdam, Alexis, and then Berend, you're in Utrecht, right?
Yeah, Beeldhoven. It's a small town near Utrecht.
Okay. So with regards to Utrecht, music venues, are we talking like, do we have 10,000 seat amphitheaters? Do we have 2,000 seat theaters? Like, what do we have in
Utrecht doesn't have like a big stadium kind of arena, or like Madison Square Garden or something like that. We don't have, but they built like Tivoli Vredenburg, which is a really nice modern architecture, nice building. It's been around, I think, now for 15 years maybe. And then there's a lot of smaller venues in one building. So you do have like the maybe medium sized with now you were talking about 2000, and probably the largest sized halls are you can put that many people in them, but also maybe more smaller club like stages. And then you also have like Echo or like one or two other venues where you can see bands. Also the rehearsal space where we rehearse, also they just moved to another bigher location, and we were lucky enough to, like, the second week they were open in their new location, we got to perform there, playing like a pre-show for a really good Canadian artist, Juliana Riolino. Do I say it correctly, Alexis?
I think so.
Yeah, we were so lucky doing that, and they were just open. And coming from Amersfoort, which is near Utrecht, and coming to DBase, like from, I think, 1998, I was there for the first time, and now they've moved to even a new location after the one in between. It was really an honor to perform on their stage. But every time I rehearsed there with the Strokes cover band, and every time I come there, there's a little more. They're dressed up a little more, and they're like enhancing the building. So that's really also a nice venue. But Utrecht, I really like that it lacks like a really big stadium. Like Amsterdam has the Ziggo Dome, which is like a more stadium-sized thing, medium, for the really big bands and the rock shows. And like stuff like that. But Utrecht doesn't have that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so Utrecht is more of a college town. Uh, so it's pretty small. It's sort of like a miniature version of Amsterdam, but then again, it's not that far apart, like just an hour between the two cities. But so Utrecht has some more smaller venues, like Berend said, like 2,000 capacity till like 100. But there are a lot of venues there to play for bands. I think it's one of the probably the best city in Holland for bands. Whereas Amsterdam is in the center, you don't really have any venues where you can play as a small band, and it's more focused on international artists. They got great venues in Amsterdam, but bigger stadium size, but also just big, where indie musicians play for like a 3,000 capacity. But yeah, in Amsterdam it's very hard for local bands to get gigs, whereas Utrecht is a great, uh, yeah, great scene for that.
And are there any other than cities other than Utrecht that kind of provides that, or
Well, you got Rotterdam, which is the second biggest city in Holland, but that by origin is sort of more focused on dance music. Of course, you have a couple of venues, but yeah, it's kind of dwindling the last 20 years. Like, there's less interest in guitar music. I think Groningen up north, Groningen is still a good city for music. Uh, yeah, that's about it, probably. Those are our biggest cities in general, anyway. So, yeah, it's always like almost like 2 hours apart. So it's not like, yeah, uh, you go from New York to Nashville, or those distances are not applicable to Holland, obviously. So
would you say a lot of citizens like do a lot of traveling amongst the country, or do people kind of stay where they like live?
yeah, funny enough, I think that's still true that you still stick to your where you grew up, or set up yourself and stay in that small little vicinity. Yeah, but I don't know how for you, Bear, like, do you? I
Yeah,
always,
I usually travel to Amsterdam actually because I always get the mailing of Paradiso, which is the one of the oldest venues in the city in an old church. It's really nice. Everyone loves Paradiso, but they still have a really good programming. I think there are a lot of good artists and bands in Paradiso. So every now and then, again, I think I really should go to Utrecht because it's more close and I can go by bike and see a show in Tivoli Vredenburg. But I end up going with the train and the subway and walking to the church in Amsterdam just to see this one band or artist that I discovered and I really want to see live. So I end up in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I wish that's the one thing about our country that drives me nuts, that our mass transit and our public transportation is just awful. Like, I'm so jealous that you guys have trains everywhere and it's just like it's so convenient, right?
Yeah, it's true.
yeah, it's great.
You can drink on the
Also,
train, you don't have to worry about like
Yeah, you can drink a beer and then travel back. And
uh,
yeah,
I do. Yeah, I like to. Well, now that we're talking about this, I think the great thing that Holland, well, the advantage of that it's a small country. Like in Amsterdam, you get for music wise, you still get to see all the good bands, like all the big artists come play here. And usually, if you just not that late, you can get tickets before it's sold out. Whereas when I lived in London, for instance, that same band would play there as well, but you got so bigger population, so those shows would always sell out within 1 or 2 hours. Whereas in Holland, you could still, like, after 3 days, get a ticket, usually cheaper as well. So yeah, for music, for seeing international artists, it's a great. Like, a lot of English people actually go here to see bands because most of the time it's sold out in the UK, and so they come overseas and then to attend a show here. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I've interviewed some bands from the UK who aren't real big fans of touring in the UK.
Oh.
That it's very difficult, that it's very gatekeeping, like the venues, and that a lot of them enjoy France, and the people like French people seem to be a lot more receptive to like music and new bands and stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever experienced that or if you've heard that.
Well, yeah, like we played like two shows of Friends once, which was really cool. But Friends, I guess in general, it's a bit like they're pretty open for music, and yeah, I guess it's not as professional, maybe that whole scene over there, the industry. So it's easier to just organize gigs or from a very smaller towns or venues can just host gigs more easily than they do in the UK. Maybe I don't know.
Hmm. Well, guys, this has been great. I thank you so much for doing this. Best of luck. And do we have any new music coming out or any tour dates that we can talk about or anything that's in the pipeline?
Yeah, so yeah, we just released our new record a month ago, Painted Windows. We were really happy with that one. And also in a couple of weeks, we got a Christmas song coming out. So our first
3 Christmas songs.
three, yeah. So they're all, yeah, around the, well, a theme about like all the songs deal with some Christmas aspect of Christmas. So yeah, it was a fun exercise. Well, fun writing them, and that was actually that you have to write in a certain way. You want to be original and creative, and not just do the same old Christmas stuff. And yeah, so we're really well. We're still finishing them up, but hopefully they're going to be released in a couple of weeks. So it's
Mariah Carey would be proud.
She probably would be, yeah.
She probably would be. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you so much for doing this interview. Best of luck. Much love from across the ocean. And
Welcome.
yeah.
if we
Thanks
if
so much.
we ever make it over, we will definitely connect and we'll sit and have a
Cool.
beer.
For sure. Yeah. No, thanks for inviting us. It was really fun to do. So,
Welcome.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands like Grapes of Grain that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dog. You've been great. This is the Music Lab podcast.